Well, the chair of the Senate Homeland Security Committee claims Dr. Anthony Fauci could face prosecution after yesterday's contentious Capitol Hill hearing. Here's what Republican Senator Rand Paul said on the takeout.
We do believe he destroyed records. That's against the law. And I think that he could have answered that honestly, and he wouldn't have had any problem, no criminality because of his pardon. But in choosing not to answer it, I think it is obstruction of Congress, and I think there is a very real chance that he could be prosecuted for that.
And just hours before that interview, Fauci appeared before the Senate Homeland Security Committee for a hearing on the origins of COVID-19. He invoked the Fifth Amendment in response to every question.
Do you think that the risks really are worth the benefits for gain-of-function research?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
And CBS News' Jarred Hill joins us now with more on this. Jarred, good morning. What did Dr. Fauci say about why he pleaded the Fifth?
Pretty straightforward here, Michael. Dr. Fauci said that he thinks in his opening statement that Senator Rand Paul wants him in prison and has a, quote, unhinged obsession with him. So, quote, any reasonable person would have taken the Fifth. On the takeout, Senator Paul slammed Fauci for funding research at the lab in Wuhan, China, where some believe COVID-19 started.
He does bear responsibility here for perhaps the worst medical decision in our history, and that is to fund dangerous research in a less than safe lab in a totalitarian country, creating respiratory viruses that have increased pathogenicity and increased transmissibility.
Well, the head of the National Institutes of Health and the CDC is also criticizing Fauci after yesterday's hearing. Here's what he told Matt Gutman on the CBS Evening News.
I think there's evidence that Tony Fauci authorized research that happened in the Wuhan lab with American taxpayer money, despite the fact that there were other scientists who thought that this kind of research was too dangerous to do. It's this kind of dangerous gain-of-function research that he supported.
All right, so you have that, but the former White House coronavirus response coordinator under President Trump defended Fauci. Here's what Dr. Deborah Birx said on the takeout yesterday.
We all are human, and I hope we step back and allow Dr. Fauci that humanness, at the same time holding Dr. Fauci, myself, and others accountable to really make this a better response next time.
Toward the end of yesterday's hearing, Senator Rand Paul said the Senate Homeland Security Committee will vote on a resolution to hold Dr. Fauci in contempt next week. Michael.
All right, Jarred Hill, thank you. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News legal contributor Rebecca Roiphe. She joins us on the phone. Rebecca, good morning. Now, Dr. Fauci's attorney released a statement reading, quote, "We are completely confident that Dr. Fauci has a valid Fifth Amendment privilege here and is on solid legal ground in asserting it." So the big question here, is he correct?
Well, it's a complicated question, and there's a question about whether even if he isn't entitled to claim such a broad Fifth Amendment privilege, about whether or not Congress would effectively hold him in contempt and have him prosecuted for that. So he was granted a pardon by President Biden, and in order to plead the Fifth, there has to be some level of exposure, criminal exposure and danger for him. And I guess the argument on the part of the Republicans is that there isn't, and therefore this was an invalid invocation of his Fifth Amendment privilege and also too broad. And his counter-argument, of course, is that, Rand Paul has had, such an intense hatred of him and what he has done in office that this was, in fact, a perjury trap. So anything he said could have exposed him to criminal liability.
And Rebecca, one of the most contentious moments is when Senator Paul had Dr. Fauci's attorney removed from the hearing by security. Was that legally permissible?
Yes, I think that's more theatrics. It obviously is, having his lawyer there is not at this point helping him. He has already been instructed, as he says, over and over again to plead the Fifth as an answer to every question. And so the lawyer's presence is merely sort of adding some form of credibility or sort of authority to that claim. And, this then just creates some kind of theater.
And Rebecca, it's worth noting that this is a hearing on Capitol Hill. It's not a courtroom. Is there a legal distinction? Should Dr. Fauci have acted differently given that he was in front of lawmakers and not a judge?
Well, you can still be, charged with lying to Congress or with perjury for a false statement. And so, you often see government witnesses and, ex-government officials, current government officials claiming the Fifth under these circumstances because of that. But, I do think that government oversight is incredibly important. And so, the argument on the other side that transparency and accountability is so critical, that cooperation with these sorts of hearings, even if it is, limited out of some kind of concern, is extremely important. But, I think we've entered an era in which that kind of cooperation is less and less common.
All right, Rebecca Roiphe, thank you.